Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Brian. We're going to wrap up today with sounds from my inbox, exploring a few bands who have contacted me and asked me to check out their stuff. Most of these bands are going to be on the smaller side, lesser known, so it's a good bit of exposure for them, and hopefully you can find some awesome stuff here that you're interested in. Let's start off with the first one. I got an email. It said, my bandmate and I have a new single entitled Greek Gods that we're hoping you'd make a reaction video for. We think it would go well with your channel. The genre is a mixture of hip-hop and alternative rock. We promise it won't disappoint. Well, I'm already sold. I love genre smash-ups, and alternative rock is a big one of mine. Let's dive into this and see what JETPACK and SPIRALHILL are bringing to the table with Greek Gods.
Now summer's gone, no week has passed. Baby smoking weed and chillin', it ain't gonna last. Now the summer's gone, I ain't coming back. I ain't coming back. Now the summer's gone, another week has passed. Baby smoking weed and chillin', it ain't gonna last. Now the summer's gone, I ain't coming back. I ain't coming back. Till my nose inside, I'm out of my resist. Show too much from changing, gonna keep increase. Fire in the system for letting it out. In my flood, in a shower, in a watch you bleeding now. I'll bring up blood, when it's up, and then we'll have fish and wall. I'm the boy you know, police in the know. The riches don't exist, the information's over. Blue blood through my veins, remember elastic tongue. On the ground, and I get over. And I get over. Blue blood through my veins, remember elastic tug. Leash on the ground, and I get over. And I get over. Now summer's gone, another week has passed.
I do like this chorus. It's quite a bit catchy. The layers are all very complimentary.
Rest in peace, great grandma, you had to go. I'm still here, working on my floor. God makes you wait no long. Long live till we see it on the side of the wall. On the side of the bridge, on the side of the camera, on the side of the sick, on the side of the table. On the side of the table. You hit your head and you dead. Continue to lie, change the lie. Change the lie. Change the light red. Continue to lie, change the lie. Change the lie. Change the light red. Greek guys and Greek guys and I'm sick. I'm Greek guys and Greek guys and I'm sick. I'm Greek guy, I'm Greek guy, I'm 6. I'm Greek guy, I want 6. My coach, bitches, all that. Now summer's gone, another week has passed.
A little bit of variation to this. Feels like we're going to build up into the version that we've had before.
Now the summer's gone, another week has passed. Really smoking weed and chilling, it ain't gonna last. Now the summer's gone, I ain't coming back. I ain't coming back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that was interesting. It primarily looks like the alternative rock element that was blended into this is entirely based on vocal melody. I was trying to find some alternative rock elements in the drums, bass. We do have a guitar that shows up, and I don't really hear it in any of that, but I do hear it in the chorus. I hear it in the vocal melody. It's done with pitch alteration in order to get a little bit of that roboticness to it. It's a very popular sound these days. I don't have a problem with that in particular, but it is very lightly alternative rock, but I think it works well enough. A lot of this track, though, ends up being very hip hop based. It's heavily layered and textured, which I quite appreciate. The chorus has the bass kick and the bass synth in the center. We have the brighter single note guitar line, bum 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 bum, just playing quarter notes over there, providing a nice little ornamentation to everything. Um, we got the hi-hat going on. There's some other synth sounds that are presenting sort of ornamental ideas. At the end, we have the scratching of the record. There's a lot of layers going on, and as I mentioned, they're all complementary. It all absolutely lends itself well to crafting the atmosphere and the groove of it all, while also not taking too much of the emphasis. It is downplaying all of these parts so that the vocals are the present element, as that is the most important the most important part of a hip hop track. Unfortunately, that's kind of it, which is probably enough for their core audience. I'm trying to think of other um, artists who have sort of mixed over the rock and hip hop genres. It's a big thing today. We're seeing more and more of it, and I really can't wait to see where it goes as we enter into a more experimental version of it, whereas this seems to just kind of take the surface level elements of both and put them together. I really want to see where people take this when we enter our post trip rock era. The post eras of most genres are usually the good ones for me, anyways, so I'm just ready for that. Um, But it just ends up being very similar the whole way through. And like I said, for their core audience and probably for them as artists, it's probably exactly what they want. It's good enough for what they're doing. It just, for me, it's too similar throughout to really support the 4 minute runtime. And I know that's also because I'm not paying attention to the lyrics, which are, as I mentioned before with hip hop, the core element here. It's something I can't ignore. It's that I'm not listening to the lyrics on this listen. We're going to get into them in a second, but that most people who would listen to this probably are hyper focused on them. With that said, I did really enjoy the ending. We introduced a variation on our chorus, which we had already heard a couple times, so I enjoyed that. And not only was it just an isolated a variation, but it also led us to a brand new outro, a brand new rhythmic pattern, a brand new atmosphere. It's just a really cool moment at the end, and I would have loved to hear a little bit more of the spiciness showing up elsewhere in the tracks. For what it's worth, speaking about the lyrics, I do kind of wish there was a little bit more clarity to the verses. I think the chorus had enough enunciation to it that I could understand what was being said. The verses were very mumbled and slurred. There's a soft enunciation through a lot of consonant sounds, and everything sort of just swirled together, and the production on top of it all didn't help either. I had a very difficult time understanding it, but it could also just be something like growling, where I have to attune my ears to the specific elements and delivery of this style, and that over time and exposure to it, I'll be able to pick up on the words easier. But as it stands right here, as a lyrically driven genre and a lyrically driven song, I couldn't pick out the lyrics, so the one thing that you're trying to hook me on the hardest, I have no connection to. Um, but again, that might just be me being unfamiliar with the style. Overall, though, this is a jam. The chorus, I loved every time the chorus came back. So yeah, I'm gonna chalk most of this up to bias and unfamiliarity. Most of the negatives I had. But I think even if I would become more familiar, the one thing that would be a hurdle for me particularly is the repetitiveness. That would be the one thing I might consider working on if the artists also feel that there is something missing. Let's check out some lyrics. It seems to be a song about trying to come up from nothing, put in the due diligence, putting in all the hard work, knowing that the work is going to have to be harder than those who might have been able to start off from a higher rung of the ladder, um, and sort of, I suppose, trying to balance that, having a work-life balance to it all too. You can't keep your nose to the grindstone indefinitely; you'll get burned out. But understanding that, at least with the chorus, which we do end up hearing the chorus 6 times, 3 groupings of it, and each grouping we listen to it twice. It says, the summer's gone, another week has passed, busy smoking weed and chilling, but it ain't gonna last. Now the summer's gone, and I ain't coming back. The idea that, I took some time to relax, but that time's behind us, and I'm not going back to it. So maybe not so much about work-life balance, and really about getting into the grind and just trying to rise to the top. It says, this is just my flow, I cannot show. You can now watch, but you can't know. So, I'm good at spitting these rhymes. All you can do is watch. You can't know how it happens. You're not going to be able to see behind the scenes. You're not going to be able to look at my notes, anything like that. You get to see the end product and be amazed by it. He says, but I'm at Barnes & Noble, looking for information, probably trying to expand the mind, trying to find new things to write about. Because, at the end of the day, a wordsmith is only as good as their words. And if you have a limited vocabulary, a limited concept of the world, you're not going to be that great. He says, but I'm poor descent, not noble. The riches don't exist. He says, I got blue blood through my veins. Yeah, that's what it seems to be about. And near the end, we see what the goal is. Greek gods. I'm gonna greet gods because I'm sick. I'm gonna be a Greek god. Right? So that's the goal. That's where he's aiming to get. Yeah, pretty good track there. Alright, moving forward. We have Mirabi Frame. They're a band based in Japan and Europe. At this time, I don't know what kind of music they're going to play. So that's fun. We get to explore it as we go through. It's sort of like a surprise. They released their Mirage EP earlier this year, and they worked with a guest vocalist, the talented Beko, also known as Marco Kalanka of the post-hardcore band Hopes Die Last. Which, I love post-hardcore, but I don't know that band, so something else I can dig into after this. Let's dive into some Mirabi Frame with the track Kataomoi? Riguretto? Probably should have practiced that one before I dove into it. Apologize if I butchered that. Let's kick it. very interesting set of influences I've heard so far. Especially given this section, which is a bit more on the post-hardcore side, mixed with these light, airy vocals. The production's quite unexpected for me as well, but I think I'm getting used to it. Yeah. Tons of energy in this track. You know what it is? I finally figured it out. It's kind of gazy. There's a lot more static around it than I would expect, which kind of washes out the guitar tones and removes that punchiness that I associate with the composition. Yeah, that was very interesting. It's a band I think I'm gonna have to check out. It's catchy. It's got good energy to it. Um, and there's some really interesting ideas. There's some alt rock ideas. The vocals are pop adjacent. There's definitely a post-hardcore DNA to the foundation of everything, but there's also a gaziness to the production. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's very interesting to hear all of these influences together in this track. It's not a sound I think I would have ever thought I would heard. Primarily because, when we talk about genre mashups, I try to find the through line of why two genres would work together. Or three or four or five, whatever. I try to figure out where they line up. You put them together on a Venn diagram. What is in that middle section? What is the thing that an artist or a composer could lean into to marry the two sounds? but I usually come at that from a compositional standpoint, not a production one. And I think the production side is important, especially for something like this, because compositionally, I feel like everything flows well. It's all rock adjacent. Post-hardcore has a very rockish feel to it. It's a bit heavier than rock, of course, but it really isn't that far away. It's not that big of a leap to get from alt rock to post-hardcore. And poppy vocals, I mean, rock and post-hardcore have catchy, higher-pitched vocals to them and similar melodic elements. A hooky vocal line isn't out of place for any of it. There's a lot of compositional ways that everything here lines up. What really stands out to me is the production of it all. And that's where a lot of the oddities come through. And they're not bad oddities. As I mentioned, it's something that I would have to get used to, but it's not like I think that there's a detriment to combining these sounds the way that they did. It's just a bit unusual. We have all these punchy, high energy ideas coming from the guitars and the drums, and then they're kind of covered up by a layer of fuzz, and it kind of makes them feel flatter, which makes the punchiness feel off. It feels like it should be hitting harder than it does. A lot of this just comes from my preconceived notions of what post hardcore music sounds like. But even the airy vocals are an odd choice because they lack the punch that I typically associate. And again, a lot of this is typical association, and that's what makes this an interesting mashup to me, is that they are taking ideas that I have a very narrow understanding of. It's something that almost every band in this genre does, and they do something totally different, almost the complete inverse of it. And I find that quite intriguing. There's also the synth and piano usage in here, which are not completely out of place with alternative rock or post hardcore, but I feel they're utilized here in a poppier manner rather than writing rock or metal adjacent melodies and lines for these instruments. They sit closer to the pop or electronic realm of how they would be composed for, which again just adds another layer of intrigue. What else could they do with this formula? That's really where I sit on this. I don't know that this song particularly is something that I would put on a top 10 list of 2023, but it's one of those songs that gets me really interested in the band. It shows a lot of potential, not just for the band themselves, but also the sound in general. It's one of those tracks that is going to put a band on my radar, and it absolutely has. Um, I know their album came out recently. I should have had that written down somewhere. Oh, it came out earlier this year. I think just a couple months ago, actually. Although this single comes from August, so it would be between August and now is when the album came out, the EP. I'm going to be checking that out. I don't know if it's on my list. I don't think it's on my list. I don't think anyone else has brought that up in the community yet. Just another thing I got to listen to in the next 2 weeks before I put my album of the year video together. I'm sold on this though. I don't have any criticism yet for it. I'm just sort of intrigued by it. Mostly because any negative that I think I would have, any criticism for it, is something that I'm kind of probably will chalk up to my own biases. I think I need to spend a little bit more time with it and see what they're doing and really dig into my relationship to the sound, which is weird because that's the whole point of like a first time reaction. Let me know what your first time thoughts are. But no, honestly, it's production. There's a lot of production things in here that are a bit odd. But the guitar riffs, the chord progressions, the melody lines, they're all solid. The production is solid too, even if it's odd for me. Everything works together. I can't say there's any part of it that sticks out. And there's plenty of variety to it too. We have the punchier, more energetic post-hardcore sections. We have the faster paced tapping and 16th note hi-hat ideas, very dancey and energetic. We have some more moodier elements that slow it down a little bit. These are mostly used for transition sets, but everything just flows, everything just works. It's just put together in an unusual way, and that might be enough to separate them from their contemporaries. I'm going to take a moment to hit some lyrics and then we'll keep pushing on. You may have noticed this was not sung in English, so I do have a translation from Google, so it's like a little shoddy. But I think even if some of the more poetic moments might have been lost in translation, the meaning hasn't been. It's very clear what this is about. We have somebody who pushed away somebody that they had feelings for and totally regret it. It says, "Remember that day your smile stole my heart? If I hadn't pushed you away then, I can't get back the time I regret. Alone in this dark pain, I mourn for you who are no longer here. What should I do? I can't forget you. If there's another world, somehow I can be happy. I just want to see you again." The penultimate stanza hits it right on the head of the nail. "Why was I so mean? Your sad face is engraved in my heart. Why did our parting turn out like that? No matter how many times I say I love you, I can't hear you anymore, and I wish every night that I could." And I found this very surprising because musically, this I didn't really catch a somber element. There was no melancholy. There were a couple of more ambient sections that felt a bit more introspective, sure, but this complete heartbroken and absolutely kicking yourself for mistakes you've made in the past. I didn't feel any of this in the track, so it's a really interesting schism of themes between the lyrics and the music. All right, next up, I got an email. It said, "Hey there. We're Challenger Deep, experimental band that plays an emotional, atmospheric mix of post-metal and blackened hardcore based in Belarus, Poland, and Lithuania. So their album drops on December 22nd, which is next Friday. There's 2 singles out currently. We're going to be checking out one of them called Sacrifice." Kind of dropping the ball, not having this going, man. All right, let's dive into this one. See what's going on with Challenger Deep's Sacrifice. It's a small change of pace for the video so far. You know what's interesting though is I can absolutely hear blackened hardcore here. I didn't know what that was going to sound like, and I don't really know that I could describe this, but the words fit. strangely enough, I'm enjoying this. It might be a bit exhausting for a full album, but it's scratching a really interesting itch that I didn't know I had. I think one of the best parts about it are the unexpected chord progressions. There's more harmonic information in here than most hardcore music tends to have, and it's because they're leaning hard into the ambient element of black metal. Yeah, very nice layering between our two guitar ideas. Yeah. Okay, so here's some cool stuff. This was actually very informative for me about my own tastes. I'm going to try to make this really quick because this segment should be about Challenger Deep here, but I've begun to figure out what about black metal works for me and what doesn't. And I think quite clear right here is vocals are important to me. They're very important for me when it comes to harsh vocals. And while I don't normally like this vocal style in traditional hardcore, it is a step up for me in a blackened element. It provides an emotional component that the black metal shrieks typically don't for me. And a lot of it comes from the production of it, but also through the projection and development of the sounds. It's black metal shrieks tend to be more narrow and smaller, and then when you also mix them into the music, they just lack any punch for me. They become background sound, which is fine. It's what they're aiming for, and it certainly blends well with the music, and black metal has a lot of fans for this, so it's obviously not a wrong decision. But this just absolutely works better for me. I can feel the emotion that the music is leaning into and the vocals bring to the forefront. It just works better for my ears. So anyways, Challenger Deep here. Yeah, this is wild. Like I said, I didn't know what blackened hardcore was coming into this. And after a little bit, I was like, yeah, that's blackened hardcore. And I don't really like know why. We certainly have the blast beat, 16th note picking that we have later on in the track, the very black metal part of it. But like the beginning, the vocals are hardcore. Yeah, okay, so we got punk harshes here. But then we have like chords and riffs. The drums are sort of not doing anything special. There's nothing here that can. They're certainly not blackened drums. The production is all pretty standard. And so I have a really tough time placing down what part of this is blackened. And I think I came upon the decision that it's the chords themselves. There's a dark satanic element to it. There's a lot of use of dissonance, but like heavy dissonance, wide elements of uh, clashing tones. That's kind of what makes it feel blackened to me, I think. It's just the pure atmosphere of it. Rhythmically, what the guitars and drums are playing closer to hardcore. Vocals are hardcore. The bass is rather hardcore, and the production's all hardcore. The blackened really comes from the atmosphere, but it's such a prominent component. It's like 1 out of 5, and yet it adds so much spice to this. I don't know how many bands are doing this blackened hardcore thing. This is the first time I'm hearing it, so I think it's going to stick in my head for a while, as most first experiences do for me. I'm just kind of going to associate Challenger Deep with the blackened hardcore sound for a while. But yeah, and it absolutely does what it sets out to do. It is evocative atmospherically, it is evocative emotionally, it is a roller coaster ride, and the song is extreme and heavy, and the vocals back that up with their power, strength, with layering, grit, all of it. And the post metal bits, I feel like don't really necessarily need to be added into the genre tags. I feel like this could just be called black and hardcore, and I'd still get it across. The post metal sections were at best just ambient moments. They kind of lacked the slow burn build up, but maybe that's something that I'll hear in another track. Regardless, I'm kind of flabbergasted by this. It is absolutely not my jam, but something clicks in my brain with it. And as I mentioned, I think a whole album might be a bit too exhausting for me, but I am willing to give it a chance, especially since there's only 6 songs on this EP. LP? I don't know. For fans of Oathbreaker, The Ocean, Cult of Luna, yeah, 100%. Yeah, third full length album. Wow. There's only 6 tracks on it, but it must be over half an hour at least, which is probably where the post metal parts come in. your single's the shortest track and it's 6 minutes long. I could see that happening. Yeah, I'm sold on that. Let me find some lyrics for this, and we'll keep pushing on. Just an absolute gut punch of a story. It's about looking at the world around you and realizing there just isn't a lot of hope out there. That life is going to be a lot of suffering. And that the only real guarantee is that you can make sacrifices, which is where the title comes from. It says, when I look around, I see the world marred by violence and suffering. The world where hope seems elusive and the struggle to maintain it becomes a burden. When passion for creation turns into searching for embers in the ash, one must make painful sacrifices in the face of overwhelming circumstances. That, I believe, is the synopsis given by them. I don't think those are the opening words to it. But yeah, the song starts off, I believe, with erasing this day, all this filth, tearing out all the words and foolish conventions. Through the suffocation to which we were sentenced before, my dreams turned into hollow memories. Behind the hundreds of sleepless nights, I had to leave my hope to die in timelessness and seek the embers in the ash. Yeah, just all my dreams and aspirations I had to toss in the ditch in order to find embers in the ash. Any small glint of hope that something would be better if I sacrificed what I really wanted out of life. It does not get better from there. Yeah, a heavy, brutal song with some heavy, brutal lyrics. Just wow. Alright. Moving on to our final one. We have a song from Michael Jensen. They're a songwriter and musician in the indie folk genre who, if I'm being honest, they seem like quite the storyteller, and I'm basing that primarily off the fact that they have a 21-minute folk song on their channel. However, though, we're going to be looking at something a little bit shorter today. This one just shy of 5 minutes, and it's called Johanna. So let's dive into this and see what Michael has in store for us today. I was like, dang, we're starting off with a bit of tension. I was kind of worried it was out of tune, but nope, all intentional. Love all the different inflections in the voice.
Your red shoes stay in my doorway. They're still shining. And I can hear your footsteps.
Rhythmic layering between the two instruments.
You could not stay. Johanna, your crystals still hang in my window. They're still shining. Red, orange, yellow, green. And we walked the shore, the Lake Superior, hand in hand. You spoke a distant lands then of your Stockholm, Oslo, Copenhagen, Helsinki, and the beautiful people
Interesting decision to avoid resolution at times, too.
St. Petersburg. And all your footsteps, footsteps without borders. If only I could follow your no borders. And the shorebirds are lit all around us, and you call them black-bellied plovers in migration. Reminded you of Stockholm, Stockholm in springtime. Yardig, min Johanna.
Yeah. Yeah, so well, I was gonna say it's a straightforward indie track. The foundation is straightforward. We have a guitar consistently giving us the uh, chordal outlines, occasionally giving us full chords, but for the most part, it's individual notes outlining the chords and the vocal melody on top of that. But there's a lot of variation and movement between here as well. In fact, there was one section that came in. The thing is, when I think of folk music, I tend to think of especially Americana, which tends to bounce back and forth between an A and a B, or sometimes just sticking with an A entirely. It's about musical simplicity in order to facilitate the story. And that's certainly on display here to an extent as well, but there's more complexity to it. There are some sections that don't fit into the standard chord outlining. There's some sections that came in once just to augment a vocal rhythm and then never came back again. And I think that's really awesome about it too. We also deviate from a 4 chord progression at times to a 2 chord progression and sometimes just stick on a single chord in order to create a feeling of consistent tension before resolving all of that at the end of this consistency. And so there's more happening in the composition than I think your standard indie folk track, and a lot of it comes down to musical storytelling, at least from my perspective. It's about how does the song benefit the vocals? What are the vocals singing about, and can the guitar amplify that emotion or vibe outside of just playing chords? And that's one of the things that really draws me to this specific track is that there were at times almost where it felt like this was semi-improvisational. I don't know how much of that is true. It looked like he was glancing over at possibly a piece of paper, maybe sheet music, or maybe the lyrics, maybe nothing. Maybe just wanted to look off in that direction while playing. I don't know. Uh, but there's a lot of this where the structure ends up feeling a bit more freeform than I would expect for this style of music, and I do wonder if there is some improvisational element to it. But regardless, I was intrigued, at least on the musical side, which is atypical for this style of music for me, primarily because it felt like it could go anywhere. Sure, when a bar starts, I pretty much know what beats 2, 3, and 4 are going to be based on what beat 1 is, but I never quite know what the next bar is going to present. 9 times out of 10, yeah, we're just going to keep pushing the chord progression forward, but that 1 time out of 10, there's always that chance that we explore something different, and that's what I found exciting about it. There's also something about the vocal delivery that just absolutely works for me. There's a warmth to his timbre, even though utilizes a higher range for a majority of it. He does come down with those jumps every once in a while to end on the lower note. And I really like those resolutions too, especially because it's a partial resolution that tends to get utilized in the repeated tension sections. So it feels like the song really wants to find that full resolution. He just doesn't let it. It really allows the tension to continue going on without feeling like it's moving into a territory of suspended tension, because we do get these quasi resolves with that melody line. But for the most part, it's all higher range stuff, but still has a warmth of body to it. And I really love that combination. And for whatever reason, I was along for the ride on the story. I'm not going to say I caught every bit of it, but he's an engrossing storyteller. He just something about his voice feels natural for telling stories, and I wanted to hear more of it. And honestly, I think that's what folk music, especially indie folk, is about at the end of the day. It's to tell a story, and the main hook should be the story itself. I wouldn't say that there's really any melody lines in here that are catchy. There's nothing that makes me want to come back to it in the music itself. But there's something about the entire experience of being a part of this story, or hearing this story at least, that made me want to stick around. It's a repetitive song for the most part, and yet it doesn't get boring because for once with this type of music that's very lyric based, I was listening to it. I was here for it. I wanted to know what happened next. He just has a real great charisma about him, and I'm curious if my reaction to this and my engagement with the story would have been similar for audio only. I don't know. But there was a bit of this, and it probably comes down to the production as well, that I think I was kind of tricked into thinking it was live music, in that I wasn't watching a video of it, but I was literally in this room with him as he performs. There's a real nice room acousticness to the microphone that makes it sound not studio. And that mixed with the visuals of seeing him rather than listening to audio only, I think it gives it a very live flavor. And this kind of music, at least for my experience, needs to be live. I need to be there to really engage with it. So whether that was intentional or not, I think it's a fantastic method to have the video play through with the production that he's using on the microphone, because it really taps into where I think this type of music excels at. For the last time today, we're going to find some lyrics, then we're going to wrap this up. Alright, so lyrically, it seems to be about a person who met someone else named Johanna. They walked down the shore hand in hand, but she's no longer here. Interestingly, her shoes are still by the doorway, and her crystals still hang in the window. It's mentioned that one of the things they talk about is what he calls distant lands. She starts naming cities in Sweden. What I get out of this is that it's a story of meeting somebody who might be visiting where the narrator is from, but isn't planning on living there. They're there for a temporary amount of time. They develop a relationship, but then she must go back home, and he is left wishing they had more time. And that really leans into a lot of the longing in the track. I think it's where the tension from the beginning comes in and why there's these moments of irresolution. The relationship didn't really come to a natural end. It was just cut off abruptly at one point. And while I'm sure both were in knowledge that it was going to be temporary, it still stings nonetheless. But I really like how it's not melancholic. There's a longing to it, for sure. A wishing that things had lasted longer, but it's rather positive in its outlook, aside from those moments of tension, as it's has warm feelings tied to the recollection of these moments that they shared. Yeah, it's a beautiful little song. Absolutely love this. And it makes me want to check out some more from Michael Jensen. All right, that wraps up my thoughts on Jetpack and Spiral Hill, Mirabi Frame, Challenger Deep, and Michael Jensen. Let me know your thoughts, opinions, if you enjoyed any or all of the music on selection today. Let me know your stuff down in the comments. The artists sometimes jump in and leave some comments too, so if you absolutely love something, leave a comment showing that love, and maybe they'll be able to see it. Additionally, though, I also leave links to streaming platforms, social media for all four of the artists today in the description. It replaces where I normally plug my additional links. So if you do want to go directly, let them know that you enjoyed stuff. Uh, Head on over to any of those. Stream some music. Give them some likes, shares, thumbs ups, whatever. Send them some love from the critical community. I've never used that before, and I don't know that I want to use it again. Critical fam, what's up? Uh, Above that, also be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video as well. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon. I'm starting to lose my voice. Morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.